Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review after a week of fighting with a defective reflective armor printer. I am finally back recording videos. I was recording not too long ago, actually. It's just how it is. Today we're going to be looking at an older one with the Woodsman, which is one of the earliest OmniMechs in existence, and probably not something that you've seen very often. It was basically relegated to second and even third line units, and most people didn't have them during the clan invasion, but the good people at Earthworks have been starting to build them again for Clan Wolf. I have a few of the original design and original specs showing in the pictures here. I've got one here that's an original Woodsman, but most of the ones that we'll see here are Earthworks rework of the design, which works perfectly fine in the exact same way. So let's talk about this old little OmniMech, shall we? Clan Wolf used to be really good buddy with Clan Coyote. Well, that changed over the years, especially quite recently. But, I mean, they were basically best friends and best buds while messing with all the other clans in Homeworld. The things have changed, and the War of Reavings were pretty darn terrible. When the Coyote was released, Clan Wolf got in with them and started experimenting with the technology, even though they had not officially won it in a trial. This can probably be viewed with things like the lupus. It means wolf, in case you didn't know about that. Being the second OmniMech that the Coyote really put into production, and, it worked fairly well and brought more technology and more understanding of how pods were supposed to work forward, basically. So this was a time of experimentation and a time where strong friendships were quite important amongst the clans. Following this, Clan Wolf got their first OmniMech out the door in 2865 with the Woodsman. The idea was to have a machine that they could use as a testbed for pod technology and how pods were going to work in order to expand their knowledge base of their scientist caste, which is pretty important when brand new technology like that comes out. It was still a fairly efficient fighter, and it would be able to challenge most 2Cs and C refit machines that were floating around the Kerensky cluster at the time. And since there were a limited number of OmniMech, it was a top-of-the-line machine of the era. It was through the basic understanding of the Woodsman that Clan Wolf basically built their entire tome on, let alone the backbone of the clan military for the centuries to come. Really, look at the Woodsman and what it was able to do, and you'll figure out like all the other mechs that were derived from it or from the experiments that were done with it. Directly related, you've got the Timberwolf, which is basically just the evolution of the Woodsman, the Gargoyle, which is a big Woodsman, the Naga, which is a artillery Woodsman, and more recently you've got the Naga 2, which is a suicidal Woodsman. The Naga 2 is a little bit of an odd duck, to be honest. But that's just looking at machines that were directly influenced by the Woodsman. On the other side, you also have things like the Mad Dog and its derivatives, Mad Dog 2, 3, 4, 5, 72, whichever, which use design specifications from the Woodsman in order to build an OmniMech that was able to fight the Woodsman. I would say even the things like the Summoner are probably derived from the Woodsman in a way because they share speed profiles. It really was a basic design which everybody decided to basically improve upon, a little bit like the Mackie was back in the days. When the Timberwolf entered production, the Woodsman production basically stopped in the Kerensky cluster, meaning the machine was relegated to second-line units and other less reputable units. You might see some of the originals float around, but they will be quite rare. Most of them have been destroyed through years of fighting, or have just been mothballed and never looked at again. Clan Wolf didn't need to rebuild heavily before the Battle of Terra, however, and they decided to give a production license to the Woodsman to Earthworks Incorporated in the Wolf Empire. Some were sold to Clan Seafox as well as concession for other machines, so you might start seeing a little bit of those newer Woodsmen floating around the inner sphere. They're not going to be super common, but I mean, if you start looking at their performance, they work just fine. So maybe it is a thing to keep an eye on if you're a merc leader or someone trying to rebuild a particular house force and you've got a way to deal with Clan Wolf and money to throw around. The Woodsman is rather straightforward for a 75-ton mech, and even if it was just a standard mech rather than an OmniMech, it would still be quite decent. The chassis is made of endo steel to save some weight, and it's protected by 13.5 tons of standard plate, which is, plenty enough on a mech that size. The engine is a very basic Vlar 300 taken off old Marauders, which is the most common engine, at least at the time, in the clan clusters. And it gives it a top speed of 64 kilometers per hour with a potential boost of 86 kilometers per hour using a mask. You don't have too terribly much advanced technology on there, as you can see. So you've got plenty of room inside the mech to fit all sorts of things in terms of pods. It's also a little bit easier to fix than most modern mechs because of that, but then again, I prefer ferrofibrous to standard plates just because of the ease of production and replication of the armor plates. You get 12 double heat sinks built into that old Vlar engine. I mean, it was pretty much standard at the time. And it leaves you with 27.5 tons of pod space, which is the exact same amount as on a Timberwolf. The basic configuration of the Woodsman is basically what would inspire things like the Timberwolf in the future, and it really is a all-rounder. Each arm mounts an ER large laser backed by an ER medium laser, giving you a bit of a better range and firepower than your old Marauder at the same weight. Rather than a ballistic weapon, as a support, you get a pair of 15-rack LRMs with 3 tons of reload, which is decent enough, along with an extra ER medium laser for good measure. Against infantry and unarmored threats, you also have a pair of machine guns in the center torso, fed by half a ton of reloads. 5 extra double heat sinks will make sure that you stay, decently cool, let's say, in most circumstances. Very basic, very straightforward. It's going to win the fights it gets into against other, mechs in the same category in the same era. It's not the best machine ever. It's not the worst machine ever, but it's going to teach you how those machines actually work. Alpha configuration basically mimics what you would see on a MAD 3D from the inner sphere, just, in just about every single better way imaginable because it uses clan technology. Each arm has an ERPPC, giving you a decent amount of punch at a very good range, while at shorter range you get a pair of medium pulse laser and a large pulse laser. It's a great combination of weapons. You're going to be able to engage at most ranges. You're going to be fairly accurate once things get a little bit closer. And you get 5 extra double heat sinks in order to make sure that you can keep shooting those big weapons at a steady rate. You get an extra ER small laser in the nose for extra protection. Well, that's what you do with an extra half ton on a mech that doesn't have the ability to put a light active probe because the light active probe has not been invented yet. Bravo Configuration tested other pod setups, starting with mounting a Gauss rifle in the right arm, fed by 2 tons of reload. The opposite arm backs this up with a ER large laser and ER medium laser, the standard setup, providing an okay amount of firepower at shorter range. The right torso mounts a 4-tube of Artemis guided SRM. A little bit weird, I'd rather go with a streak at that point. While the opposite side has a 10-rack of LRM with Artemis guidance. A little bit of everything once again, but it tests more weapons, more guidance system, more different things, so you can possibly use them in pods in other machines later on. November Configuration was the testbed for what would later become the Naga. Each arm and much of the side torso are now filled with an Aero 4 artillery missile launcher with 15 missiles stored in the body as well. You're going to be able to bombard things quite a bit there. I know clans are not a huge fan of artillery usually, but you still need it for all sorts of things, including destroying fortifications, laying mines in very large areas, and just causing all sorts of trouble. You still have an ER small laser in the center torso to make an active presence to defend the machine once something gets close by, but hopefully nothing gets close by to your November Configuration Woodsman, so you don't have to worry about that. The reintroduction of the Woodsman by the fine folks at Earthworks gave us 2 additional configuration for the machine. I mean, they could still just build the original one or do like I've seen a lot of people talk about and just use the Timberwolves configurations on the darn thing, but they've got specific stuff that they're selling to people as pod kits for the machines. Charlie Configuration is a close-range brawler using a pair of improved heavy large lasers on the left arm, along with 6 extra double heat sinks, 18 in total, in order to compensate for the slight heat curve you're going to have with that. I mean, it generates a whole lot of heat, but you're able to cut out an entire ton of armor per shot unless you're shooting at reflective armor. You know, that's one of the big advantage of stuff. On the opposite side, you have an LB-10X autocannon in order to seek holes in the enemy armor that you've made with those big lasers. You also have a Watchdog CWS unit, which gives you basic active probe and ECM capabilities, which is perfectly fine on a mech that size and uses that half ton, well, a ton and a half for a Watchdog, to very effective means. Overall, this is a pretty decent Woodsman, and it's going to give you enough punch that you're going to be able to threaten people fairly quickly. Delta Configuration features 2 quartets of weapon, and some of them are more recent, so you wouldn't be able to put them on a older Woodsman anyways. The arms, though, are fairly straightforward. It's a pair of ER medium lasers on each side, giving you the ability to outgun and outrange a lot of inner sphere machines, at least some of the older ones. More modern machines will have ER weapons of their own. There's all sorts of things that are available for sale nowadays, but it's still quite decent. Now, for the weird part, each shoulder now mounts a pair of 4 tubes of mortar launchers, each fed by 2 tons of reload, 8 tons in total, allowing you to shoot a wide variety of specialty mortar rounds, which are quite massive nowadays. Mortars are not super common. They're not the most efficient weapon ever. But, I mean, you're able to dodge anti-missile systems with them. You're able to do very good lobbing of shells at a decent range. It does a lot of good things, just not a thing that is super popular yet. You still get that Watchdog CEWS to improve on the utility of the machine. I'm not sure the light active probe utility there is going to be that great because you're going to be sitting in the back and lobbing those mortars, but an ECM is always a nice thing to have. It has been floated around by Earthworks, at least that's what I heard when I was on Terra, that they were wanting to do an upgraded version of the Woodsman with some minor tweaks for Star League exports. He'll probably have to rename it something else because it's going to be a little bit different, but, you know, we'll see how that goes. The mask would be removed on those, and the plating would be replaced with laser reflective, explaining why I've been working and fighting with laser reflective printers all week. The saved weight from the mask could probably go to additional plates or simply to improve the pod space on the new Woodsman, which would be kind of in the same kind of family as the Warwolf and Tundra Wolf. I'm not sure this is going to be a massive seller, and I'm not even sure if it's going to be in production. But, you know, it's going to be a thing, more than likely, and hopefully, when we see them, we're able to adjust what we know about the Woodsman to be put into that new machine. The Woodsman might not be a super common sight nowadays, but you can review various tapes, various records, look at different things and historical records, and you can see that it was actually used up until the clan invasion, especially by the non-invading clans. Things like Clan Cloud Cobra, things like the Good Gold people at Clan Blood Spirit, they had a couple of Woodsmen floating around because Clan Wolf had sold them to just about everyone. With a decent amount of pod space, good amount of internal space, there's a lot of potential configuration that you can use on this particular mech. It might not be the best 75-ton OmniMech out there, but really it's one of those things that you might be able to afford or that you might be able to get, while the fancier things like the Night Gear or the Timberwolf, well, since they're out of your price range, well, you get the Woodsman and you do what you can with it. So I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. I'll see you guys later. And if there is anything that you want to ask, just to put it in the comments down below. Thank you. Bye-bye.